how much worse would it have been if Hezbollah invaded northern Israel on October 7th, while Hamas was invading southern Israel on that horrific, catastrophic day. Hi, this is Joel Rosenberg for All Israel News. I'm here on an IDF base in northern Israel. We're not that far from the Lebanon border. And the IDF invited journalists up here today for a very interesting briefing. Basically, they were painting the picture, telling the story of what it would have looked like if Hezbollah had invaded simultaneously on the 7th, or even started on the 6th, and how off guard Israel would have been for that, and the massive level of weaponry that was prepared, was purchased, was pre-positioned by Hezbollah in those Shia Muslim villages all along the border of Israel. These are weapons from Iran. You would expect that, because Iran is the main supplier and funder of Hezbollah. But we also found weapons from Russia, and we found weapons from China. That's very interesting. I want to talk more about that later, because as you guys know, I've got a political thriller coming out March 11th called The Beijing Betrayal. And what's interesting about that novel is, in part, it's about the Communist Chinese getting ready to invade the democratic Chinese island of Taiwan, which is a main U.S. ally in the Pacific. Communist China wants that island in real life. I wrote a political thriller about them getting ready to invade. But what's interesting is, in the novel, I also talk about the close alliance, the very secret and quiet alliance that most people don't talk about between Communist China, between Beijing and Iran, the Iranian regime, and radical Islamist groups. I don't want to get into the novel too much. I'm just saying that when I got to see actual Chinese weapons here that were captured by Israeli forces when they invaded southern Lebanon to get them out of the hands of Hezbollah, it was chilling. It was chilling, because what I was writing about was fiction. What we saw here today is fact. We saw 18,000 pieces of military hardware, of weapons that Hezbollah had. We saw, let's take a look at some of this. So just one example. I mean, we saw machine guns, right? We saw missiles, we saw rockets, we saw mortars, we saw anti-aircraft missile launchers. We saw boxes and boxes and boxes of ammunition, all designed to kill Jews, all designed to kill and invade Israelis and take over northern Israel, and eventually all of Israel in a pincer movement, Hezbollah from the north, Hamas from the south. But just here's one example. Here's a truck with 24 rocket launchers on it, plus all the places to put additional rockets in storage, so that once those had fired, they could quickly be refilled and fired at Israeli towns. So basically, you could have almost 50 rockets fired at Israel just within minutes, and then this truck would drive back to a Shia village in southern Lebanon, sneak into a garage, close the door, reload, and wait. And unless Israel was watching at that moment, Israel would have no idea where those rockets and missiles came from, and no idea when the next strike was coming. Again, all over this base, we had an opportunity to see the magnitude. And it's not even all that they got. Israel destroyed most of it, but they captured so much more, and additional weapons. They destroyed about 80% of Hezbollah's missile force, but they decided to bring this back, in part so that Hezbollah would never be able to have it again, in part so that the world could see just how prepared Hezbollah was to invade Israel. That's why Israel moved 70,000 Israelis away from the northern border, deeper to safer areas inside Israel. But the fight continues. Okay, right now we're in a ceasefire, but will that ceasefire hold? And then what? Who will enforce the ceasefire long term? Israel. Senior Israeli officials, military officials told us, some on the record, some on background, we are never going to allow anyone in the world, not the United States, not Europe, not the United Nations, no one else is going to govern and police this. We have to police it ourselves. It's been a fascinating day. We'll write more about this on All Israel News, but I wanted to give you a sense of what we saw, what we've heard, and how important it was. I want to just say, I thank God that Hezbollah didn't invade in synchronization with Hamas on the 7th or even on the 8th or 9th. Israel was not ready on those days for a massive invasion. And in fact, we also learned here, senior military officials told us that they knew Hezbollah had this plan to invade northern Israel, to take over the Galilee. They knew Hezbollah was preparing all these villages with weapons. But the magnitude of weapons they found, one official told me, was 3 times larger than what Israeli intelligence believed it to be. That just shows how horrific it would have been if Hezbollah had activated the plan before Israel got into position. This is Joel Rosenberg at an IDF base, unnamed, up here in northern Israel, for All Israel News.